Okay, guys, you've got to watch Rumble Live on the KO Cup coming up on the 31st of October. It's going to be magnificent. Not only is it the best white-collar boxing show you're ever going to see, you're going to get the chance to be interactive on this show, to vote for the People's Champion, to vote for the best boxer, to vote for the fight of the night. It's going to be an amazing interactive experience with live scoring as we go along so that you can follow it in depth. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be fantastic. We want to see you there. We look forward to it. Okay, Peter, so what I wanted to talk about today, really, it was in the aftermath of the Lomachenko-Lopez fight. Fantastic fight, great performance from both boxers. And as we know, Lopez came away victorious. And, it was, going back, I said that I thought Loma might have a little bit too much, and I tipped him for a points victory. But, as people said, he left it too late. Well, Lopez wouldn't let him get into gear too early. And interestingly enough, a lot of trade people were tipping Lopez. And we had, because of course, we had Willie Monroe Jr. Talking to us a few months ago on this show, saying that he thought Lopez was going to win that fight. And so fascinating fight, great fight, great for boxing that it happened, and a great display as well. But what I wanted to talk about was the aftermath of that, because there was a lot of negative stuff about Lomachenko that I feel came out about that on the forums and everything else, which I thought was very unfair. And I wanted to drill down into why that happens and why people say these things about what is obviously a great boxer. And I think it's a little bit of a problem that boxing's got. It's a bit of a dichotomy. We're kind of always saying to people, what we want is 50-50 fights. And that's what the people want to see. Well, underlying that is a home truth that all boxers know and all trainers know. If you only take 50-50 fights, you will end up with a 50-50 record. And if you end up with that 50-50 record, in other words, do what everybody wants you to do, nobody will want to watch you because your record is 50-50. And this is where it comes into the Lomachenko thing. I mean, obviously consummate boxer, amazing skill. We saw that amateur career, culminating in those 2 golds. I mean, his amateur record was 396 wins and 1 loss. And that 1 loss was avenged twice. And then he comes into the pro ranks, he does a 10-rounder in his first fight, and then he goes to set a record and win a world title in his second fight. And he boxed Orlando Salido for the WBO featherweight title, and he lost that fight, close decision on points. But, it was he just couldn't really, it was too much of a jump from the amateurs to the pros in the second fight. But in his third fight, he won a world title, boxing Gary Russell Jr. for the same title. Interestingly enough, in that first fight, Salido came in overweight, so couldn't retain the title, couldn't win the title. So not only was Lomachenko boxing someone who was an experienced, established pro in his second pro fight, he was boxing someone who was over the weight limit that he was supposed to be boxing in. But anyway, so he narrowly lost that and then won it in his third fight, equaling the record for winning a world title in the quickest possible time. So from then on, he's only boxed in world title fights. And so now his record after the Lopez fight reads 14 wins, 2 losses. So 14 wins, 2 losses, if you put that in front of the average boxing fan who doesn't look any deeper into records, is not that impressive. They're going to think this guy, is maybe not going to go anywhere, has found his level. But without going into the details of Lopez Lomachenko and how he won and what his future options are, I'm just saying, I think he has to be given a lot of kudos for taking that fight. We know that Lomachenko demanded, in a way, that fight, and even made some purse movements, as he's done before, to make the opponents box him. So he's often chased the hardest fights that he can possibly get. Always engaged in the hardest fights he can possibly get, even taking pay cuts to get the harder fight. And he's ended up with this 14-2 record so far. I mean, obviously we haven't seen the last of Lomachenko. There's much more to come. But, on the forums, people are saying, well, he's not that great. We never thought he was that good. And we've got to contrast that, I suppose, with the person we often come back to, who we know has got the ultimate record, that 50-0 record across those 5 weight divisions. And an amazing boxer, a consummate skills. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not going to slag off Floyd Mayweather here at all, but I'm saying that he played the game his way. And that could be taken as a compliment, or it could be taken as, as detrimental. Floyd played the game his way. Floyd recognised that boxing was a business, and maybe he put the business quite high up there. He sometimes had the fight played to his advantage. He was effectively the promoter for a lot of his fights. So, he could, for example, he wanted to box Ricky Hatton in a 24-foot ring. Hatton would have preferred a 16-foot ring, obviously because of the contrast in style. So in little ways, Floyd could weight things, and why wouldn't he, and why shouldn't he? You know, and sometimes he would, you know, he didn't fight Pacquiao really at a peak Pacquiao. He, you know, you say you let that fight build, but, you know, he passed over that when that was, you know, there was all the clamour for that. You know, and there's other people, you know, that he boxed when maybe they were a little bit past their best, or obviously Canelo a little bit before, you know, coming into maturity. But he ended up with that perfect record, that 50-0 record, obviously capped by the McGregor fight, you know, fighting a novice in his first fight, but he's got that record. So whenever you talk to someone about Floyd Mayweather, they say 50-0, 50-0, no defeats, you know. And Floyd took that route, and again, I don't want to say this is detrimental to Floyd, because it's a route that a lot of boxers would love to take. You know, he capitalized on the business, and let's not also forget, Floyd comes from a deep boxing family, and he saw his uncle Roger, you know, sort of fall apart with pugilistic dementia, undoubtedly from the beatings he'd taken in the ring. And you know, Roger was a world champion as well. Roger was an amazing boxer, but you know, he didn't come out of it with loads of money, and obviously he didn't come out of it intact. And eventually, Roger, God rest his soul, died from the effects of this. So can Floyd be blamed for playing the game, using the best of his talent to milk the most money out of the system that he could possibly get? And I would say, obviously, he can't. But it's an approach that he took. It's not the approach that Lomachenko has taken. And so Lomachenko has ended up, you know, just wants to fight the best all the time. And so he's ended up with this record. So that's what I'm saying, is that people have got to look beneath records. They've got to look a little bit harder, maybe give people like Lomachenko the credit for doing what the fans demand and doing what the fans ask, you know, but then they don't end up with the perfect record, and then they maybe don't end up with, you know, maybe it's not the smartest way to go in the boxing business, but in the boxing sport, you know, it is the best way to go, to find out actually where you sit, to find out how your talent measures up against the best of your era. So I just think, you know, Lomachenko deserves all the credits and plaudits in the world for going down that route of, you know, extreme sportsmanship, we might call it. So, you know, I think pat on the back. And where does he go from here? I mean, I think there's great fights. You know, he's obviously going to want that rematch. He's pushing for that rematch. There's other great fights here, but for a lightweight, he could easily drop to super feather and have great fights there. For Lopez, I think Lopez, mate, is, you know, is probably going up. I don't know if he will take the rematch. He'll say, well, I've been there, I've done that, you know, I've done lightweight, I've got the 4 belts, and I think maybe the future is incredibly bright for that kid, but it's probably north of the lightweight division. But, you know, let's give them all plaudits and all applause. And like I say, just look a bit deeper into the records and what they really mean. That's all I was going to say about that. And I think Lomachenko highlighted that, you know, coming out of that amazing fight with that 14-2 record. And I think the detrimental comments were undeserved. He should be patted on the back for taking the risks.